How's your day been?
My day has been good.
Mhm.
I had meetings with friends, ran some errands, and now I was excited to pop onto this recording. So it's been good, a
Yeah.
busy day, but a nice September day. What about you guys?
Amazing. Yeah, good as well. Good as well. Preparing a little bit for our interview and then
Hmm.
working and yeah. And Aitana,
Amazing.
you're an
Yeah,
early.
I have been cooking a lot and baking. Basically, like this past days, I just started like my new healthy food in English, yeah, like a business basically. And
Yeah.
so I've been I have to make 5 birthday cakes this week, so I'm kind of like freaking out about it. Yeah,
Aw.
but that's exciting.
There's
I'm
a
very
lot of
happy and I
demand
love.
on you. Yeah.
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 No, I love it. But yeah, I've been just like running errands and like getting deliveries and yeah, anyways, that. But and then preparing for this episode that we're so excited about.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyways, I first and foremost would like to ask you, Carrie, what does your day-to-day rhythm look like? What meanwhile now being in Denmark?
Yeah, okay. Great question. I feel like for me, every day is different.
Yeah.
So I work for a health coaching startup on the side, and I also work as a holistic nutritionist, seeing clients one on one. And then I also have a few business projects in Copenhagen. One is a nourishment project for new mothers, and then also have a few kind of I guess you could call them side projects. So I run events with two of my close friends. We do kind of a mixture of sound healing, somatic movement, and food. Usually I'm the food portion. However, in the future, we'll probably do some breathwork sessions. But so I feel like I'm giving you an overview of the different
Yeah,
kind of
yes, you.
areas I have my hands in right now because every day really is different, depending on what I have going on. So this
Yeah.
morning I had a meeting about an event we're hosting in October. And then I had some errands around the city, had to pick up some groceries and little things like that. But typically, I try to wake up and kind of take a little bit of space for myself before getting into all the things that I have to do that day. And often I do work in the kind of like afternoon evenings. We'll take calls kind of from like 3 or 4 p.m. Not every single day of the week, but most days of the week, if I do have calls, it's in that time frame because my colleagues are mostly based in the Americas.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, but that's a little bit of an overview
Yeah.
of kind of like how my days are going these days, and yeah.
Amazing. Do you have some kind of like guideline as to like a structure that you keep, or like do you do some check-ins in the morning to kind of like structure your days, or how do you balance that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is like checklists and planning physically, like in a book. I don't love using like the calendar on my
Yeah.
computer to plan because
No.
I feel like things can get lost, and I have a couple different calendars I use. But I think the biggest thing is like I don't have it in front of me, but I have like a just like a weekly planner, and I
Hmm.
have everything scheduled each day written down, and then things that kind of span over the week I will just put
Oh,
throughout the
like
week, and I
a
need to get
physical
those.
planner?
Yeah, a physical
Wow.
planner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm so digital, so that's like, wow, that's so
Really?
beautiful, so romantic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I need the physical planner. And I love like having also checklists. And so, if I have, because every week looks different, I think if I don't write things down and then kind of cross it off, it's
Yeah.
easier for it to kind of like slip out of the way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of and usually like on I would say probably Monday mornings, I do kind of like I look at my planner, I bring things over from the previous week if there is, and then I kind of get set up of what I need to do, what time my meetings are. Also, I will cross-reference my electronic calendar and just like pull anything in I need to, but I definitely like that's kind of my necessary, like I need it
Your
or
holy grail.
I will. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
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 That's great. I love that you have so many projects, and I would love to hear like more in depth, some of them, whichever you want to share. And also
Hmm.
just it made me think, that I always think this like two types of people, let's say that one of them like has one job and they like put all their energy and effort into like one vision, let's say, and then other
Mhm.
types of people that just need to create a bunch of different like projects and movements all together. I'm that one. So also talking about your organization, like
Yeah.
how does everything look?
I think like I guess like it wasn't always like this. I worked in a more kind of like corporate setting right after I finished university, like my studies. I was in Canada at the time. And I worked in project management and I was like at a desk job. And I was also young at that point. And so I think in some ways it was probably a really good experience for me. But then I think also through that, you kind of realize like it's like I can't do this forever and then
Yeah.
I also had the financial kind of like stability to be able to pursue maybe what else I wanted to do. So it was actually during that time that I studied nutrition like as a holistic nutritionist, and I did that in the evening after work. And
Oh.
then I think after kind of having that 9 to 5 structure and then being able to study, I kind of had the doors open to like other opportunities of what I wanted to do. But it's definitely been a long process of like incorporating different things and then, having a lot of focus on food and then at some point saying, okay, I want to actually study or yeah, I guess get educated or get a certification in something that's not only related to I guess like food, physical nourishment, and then I got into like breath work and I did a certification there. So it was kind of like a intuitive, like what does my body crave, and then how can I maybe make that part of what I offer, or also like an income portal.
I
Does
love
it answer
that.
your question?
Yeah, of course. I
Yeah,
would just love to hear also like about the projects that you just have and how they all like maybe interconnect between each other in some way.
for sure. I think that like, and I also know that a lot of not everything maybe makes the most sense in the way it plays together. However, a few years ago, I think it was like maybe around the pandemic. So maybe like around 2019, 2020. Do you guys know TBM, like to be magnetic? It's
No.
this like manifestation. It's kind of like there's an app and then there's kind of like journal prompts and you can listen to these audios.
Oh.
And so I downloaded that and I was like, I had that membership. It's like a year membership at a time, I think. And by working through kind of the prompts, I was able to kind of get clear on what my like biggest passions were. And in doing that, I realized that, they didn't all maybe make sense or like go together.
Mm-hmm.
But then I feel like by diving more into the work, it was like, but if it's aligned with who you feel like you are, there's a way that you can merge them all and like kind of, be able to do them all and maybe make money in a way from all of them,
Mm-hmm.
or like have them as your business, your income source. So I think around, yeah, I guess like 5 years ago now, when I was kind of in this space of okay, what do I want to do while I'm like in the future, I was kind of realizing that like not everything has to be one thing. It can come from different places, and also in a way it can give you more financial stability, because if something kind of fizzles out, then you maybe have a few other projects. And so I
Yeah.
actually made it a goal for myself to have, I think, like 5 income portals. So
Amazing.
that, and I was also at that time like starting to work remotely and travel a lot. And so for me, it kind of worked in a way because I could like pick through or kind of have different projects. However, I will say now that I've been based in Copenhagen more or less for 2 years, it has made it a lot easier to kind of like open some projects in person here. Whereas previously everything was online. And I think I love having the balance of the two. Being
100%.
able to like sit on a call and do some work with my health coaching, the startup I work for, and then also be able to meet with my friends in the city who were also collaborating on an event. So I think
Yeah.
that's
And like
kind of
pretty
been
still like being a part of like a community in that sense. And like,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. It's a
Hmm.
good balance as well, I imagine, like both having your own and being in your own and then also being able to like have some in person like community building projects that's going on. And
100%.
how do you balance that with traveling though?
Such a good question. I I think actually coming into the autumn here in the northern hemisphere, I'm realizing that maybe I need to do a little bit less travel in
Yeah.
this season coming up that's upcoming, because it's hard to, I think, do the in person and kind of oh, how do you cultivate like those relationships and that
Yeah.
community when you're always in and out? And I spent last November until April 2025 in Mexico City, and I have my own separate community there and friends, and my sister also lives there, and I've spent quite a bit of time there. However, when I came back to Copenhagen, and now I've been back since May, I realized like, oh, I need to be here in person if I want to kind of put the proper energy into
Of course.
some of the projects I have going on here. So, I mean, I think, yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing is kind of choosing one base and having that kind of be also stable for me in so many ways. And
Yeah.
then, if I do travel, and I do still hope to travel a bit this winter, like maybe it's for 1 month or 2 months instead of like a 6 month, break. Or, I mean, I'm also working while I'm traveling, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
that that's kind of something that I've realized, and I think it'll be good for probably my nervous system as well, and just my,
Sure, for sure.
yeah.
I've done that whole thing of like traveling and also working remote for the past year, more or
Mhm.
less. And to be honest, like I've along the way I've felt fine in it,
Yep.
but now I had some irregularities in my period and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
then I was trying to
Yeah.
like figure out like why is that? Like why what is it in my environment that's creating that? And
Mhm.
I did a test recently, and my cortisol levels are just like unfortunately through the roof. They're just
Yeah.
super high. So it's one to one, you can just see what effect that it has on you, like the whole like foundational principle of like having security and having a home and having a base, like what it actually means and what it how it impacts our
Mhm.
bodies.
No, it's
Yeah.
so true. And I was gonna say, before you mentioned your cortisol was high when you got tested, that's something like I feel like having high cortisol, it's almost like our bodies can be addicted to the cortisol hormone,
Yeah.
right? And so it can feel good. And so we can have high cortisol and be traveling and enjoying the sun,
Yeah.
and
Be
then,
like
you know,
on it.
exactly. And then at some point, and if you get testing, that's probably the best route to go. But then your body is telling you, or like it's craving something different, a bit more stability or like stillness. And so, yeah, I think it's so interesting that you were
Exactly.
saying you found the same thing after a year of
Yeah.
kind of or traveling, or like, not being still in one place. And also now I'm saying I think I need to be in
Yeah.
Denmark for a bit. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fully.
And Denmark is a nice place to also just actually like hone in on some of those things because like you can really feel especially going into fall like that kind of like winter hibernation in a way where like
hmm
people are, like preparing for like the bit more like dark and cold times but like in a good way like they're like
hmm
you know making themselves comfortable in it.
exactly. I think it's a good place to be able to learn to embrace that kind of more still, like cozy, like
Yeah.
being inward season.
Mm.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Fully.
Yeah.
Fully. I was wondering in general, how did this whole path and your story with health and wellness start?
Okay. I think I actually I had to articulate this somewhere else, but written recently. And so it was a good process for me to kind of think back to like, where did it
Yeah.
start? And what I had shared in this other, it was like a written interview, was that I think it started honestly when I was super young. Like I have one sister, and I think everyone is, we kind of have our like unique gifts, if you want to call them, or like parts of our personality that are there since we were little or young or born. And so, like, for example, in my household, I was always the one. who was helping my mom cook. I was sitting on the counter, like peeling vegetables, and like I don't know what Kira, my sister, was doing, but it was not in the kitchen with my mom. And so that was kind of like when we have photos, like of me when I was little, and when I got into health and wellness, like 20 something years later, or like, I mean, I guess it was less the beginnings of it, but I think my mom was like, oh, it's always been something that you've been drawn to, at least cooking and being in the kitchen. But then I guess it was like around the start of university, like my late teens. I remember being like excited to be in the kitchen and make like zucchini noodles, or I bought like a nut milk bag before anyone knew what almond milk was. I
Yeah.
mean, I guess people did, but it was really hard to find my
Yeah.
nut milk bag. And
Yeah.
I was just like excited to make these kind of like healthy alternatives. And so I guess that's like almost like that's over 15 years ago now. But that never became kind of like a realistic option for a career. It was more just like something I was doing on the side. And I think like health blogging and I mean, I think Instagram was like barely starting at that point, but I was definitely like reading blogs, and like that was the first thing I would like open up when I was like going on the internet. I was like going to my favorite health blogs, or like, getting some fun tip of whatever it was related to health. So that was kind of the start of it. And then a few years later, I developed really horrible digestive issues. And I like couldn't really have a normal meal without getting some sort of pain or discomfort. And so it was actually around a similar time that I had been on a course of antibiotics for a staph infection. And I had to go on antibiotics, I think like 2 or 3 times in one like calendar year. So like in a 12-month period.
Wow.
And now knowing what I know, like the antibiotics definitely like wiped out my system. And
Mhm.
it's interesting how like how big of an impact it had, because like, within a year, like I could barely have food without like getting gas or bloating or just like kind of like sharp pains. And so then, you're kind of also, I was so young at the time. I was probably
Yeah.
around 20 or like 22. So I think I was also just like really not sure what could have been causing it, knowing a bit about health, but like not really knowing how it's all linked. And so yeah, I was doing a lot of research online, and then I was working with a naturopath, or naturopathic doctor, and did some testing, and then we kind of did some like elimination diets and like healing protocols, and then I was able to start feeling better, but still it wasn't like 100%. And I had kind of cut like dairy and gluten around this time, and was finding kind of like what was helpful. I also cut lectins. I don't know if you guys know so much about lectins, but I also did this like lectin removal diet and like wasn't eating any foods with lectins.
What is that?
Yeah. Lectins is, I mean, so they're found in a lot of plant foods, but it would be like, if you look at a tomato, it's like the seeds and the skin contain lectins, and they can be irritating to the digestive system in some people if you're sensitive. It's
No,
definitely not
yeah.
unhealthy or bad, but some people can just be super
Yeah.
sensitive to them based
Okay.
on their kind of, like what's going on with their digestive system.
Yeah.
So, and like potatoes are high in lectins, and yeah, like aubergine, like eggplant, like there's just specific vegetables and grains that, and like plant foods that have them. And so I had to do the research and then wouldn't eat them. And I found a lot of relief this way, but I think it was probably quite a few years testing or like playing around, figuring out what felt good, but then never being kind of like 100%. And so then eventually I decided I should go to nutrition school. So I feel
Yeah.
like it was kind of this like long journey of, okay, maybe I should make it my career, or maybe it could be a viable career path. And so then I studied nutrition for 2 years. While I was mentioned, I worked my other kind of more corporate style job. And that's kind of like, I think how I got into it. And then once you kind of have the degree, you're like, okay, I could make money
Yeah.
doing this, or like this is a potential career path. And then
Mhm.
things evolved from there.
Amazing. How did you feel so after like trying all these elimination diets and stuff? Did you see any difference? Because I've been quite on the same journey, but
Yeah.
eventually for me, it wasn't down to the diet, it was down to stressors in my life. So how did you
Mm.
was it the diets that changed something for you, or was it like cohesively with other changes that like happened during that period of time that this kind of
Hmm.
improved?
No, it's such a good question. And I think that So I think that a lot of the damage that I had that I needed to heal was from antibiotics. And so I think the food kind of like nutritional therapy that I included helped to fix that. However,
Mhm.
I definitely had other, or like we all in our systems, they'll react to stress. And so
Yeah.
I've found that, okay, so like that aside, then continuing like living, like it's not like, oh, I never had bloating again after I healed kind of some of the like imbalance
No.
I was experiencing.
Yeah.
Um, I 100% relate to like whenever my system, like since then, has been off, it's always related to me being stressed.
Yeah.
And I feel like the biggest thing I find is just like, I mean, you, you could eat foods that are easier to digest too, but that's not going to be like the whole fix to the issue. And it's, I think, just including more kind of like mindful practices. I also got quite into meditation and like breath work. And I felt like when I was including that in my routine, first thing in the morning, or like having a consistent practice with it, it made like such a difference in my energy, in my digestion, in my also like my skin health, and even like the brightness of your eyes or
Yeah.
like your like also your dental health. Like I feel like everything kind of improved when I was not only focusing on the food but also focusing on like supporting my nervous system. And yeah,
Yeah.
taking, I think a lot of it is taking like slowing down. I'm also, I think, very addicted, or like, yeah, high cortisol. And so I definitely need to remind myself to like, if something's extra stressful, like maybe just like cancel all plans and reset a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that resonates so much with me too, just this whole journey of finding your balance in your health. And sometimes it's a bit more yin, sometimes it's a bit more yang, and you just need to just, balance it out and test it, and be in this whole journey of transformation and kind of bettering yourselves and allowing yourself to just like slow down and go up and
Mm-hmm.
etc. And I was wondering when for you, like, you just told your own story. And when did you decide, okay, I want to help other individuals have this transformation too?
I think it was like probably around the time that I studied nutrition,
Yeah.
because I went into it wanting to, I remember like I was kind of like nerdy about it, like I would tell my family or like my boyfriend or my sister, my friends, like, oh, this is what you could do, but I didn't have any kind of like academic backing to what I was saying.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, if I go to school, people will take me seriously. They can't discredit my information if it's right. I went to school.
Yeah.
Or that's what I would tell myself. And then through like the process of getting education, you realize that like, wow, like, first of all, there's so much more that you can learn
Yeah.
than you think you probably would have learned going into it. We studied so many different subjects in the certification, but I think also through that you learn that like, wow, there's so many people their quality of life would change drastically if they knew these like small things. And honestly, I do feel like there are some kind of like small shifts that could drastically change someone's quality of life. And I think once you are kind of like living that day to day, you really want to be able to help people also like have a higher quality of life.
Mm.
If they, if someone is open to it. And so I think a big thing is like that you learn when you're studying is like, maybe don't work with family or someone who's too close with you unless they actually like really want to
Yeah.
learn or make a change, because
Boy.
there can be tension or people might not be ready. But I think for the people who like are ready or do want to make changes, or are struggling through some chronic illness or even acute illness, like there's a lot that you can do when you have some knowledge on, I mean, holistic like healing or yeah, nutritional therapy. So I think that's kind of, it got exciting because it was like, oh, I could just like share a few small changes and their whole life might change, or this one issue might be at least improved, if not like completely healed in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there any like like extra profound moment or something that you were like, okay, shit, like this is crazy that like people don't know this and that people aren't actually like taught this in school because like that's like at least to me that's one of the things that I continuously find a bit um appalling is that like people like we don't get these things like we don't get to know these things early on, which is like
Yeah.
it's our bodies. So like we should actually.
Mhm. I feel like I can't think of like one specific moment.
No.
Um, but I do feel like I remember when I was first starting to see clients like one-on-one, and then, often I would do an intake with my client and then I will send them like a meal plan and protocols. But in that, like after the session, but in that initial session, just chatting with someone and learning about them and getting all this information so that I can make a plan that could, like, I feel like every time I would finish a session, I would be like, wow, like I feel like I'm so excited to be able to help this person because I know they're gonna have an improved like experience or,
Yeah.
after. And
Yeah.
also just like I think you're building a little bit of a relationship with someone and you're having a conversation with them. And I mean, people have definitely like even chatting with like colleagues who are also nutritionists, or people in the field, like it's almost like therapy sometimes, like the conversations you have. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm in no way saying that I'm a therapist or like I'm educated that way, but it does feel like you can have these kind of like pretty deep conversations and get to know someone, and they can be very appreciative too, which also feels so nice because yeah, that there will be a positive impact in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I
Hmm.
mean, I feel like it's kind of correlated in some way, just the fact of you wanting to help. It might be
Mm,
with your food, but it's also like talking about you. It's, it's like your your purpose is just to help in general. So if you can also help emotionally or physically or
hmm.
whatever it is, like you will just be drawn to it. It's like this whole like coaching or the mother figure, that just helps and nourishes and educates. And I feel like you might have that in you. Does
Hmm.
it resonate with you?
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I think I'm also like that with like my partner at home, like always wanting to make sure he has food and like all this, and even with like
Same.
friends. Yeah.
What is your sun sign?
I'm Taurus, sun, and then I'm Cancer moon and Pisces rising. But
I'm
I
Pisces
really
rising
relate.
too.
Yeah.
Cancer moon.
Wow. Okay. I love the kind of like
Yeah.
overlaps. Yeah.
Yeah. And
But
Pisces sun.
yeah, Pisces sun. Okay. Wow. Oh, so good.
Talking
Yeah.
about it being fluid.
Yeah, yeah. My partner's actually he's also Pisces sun and Pisces moon and then Cancer
Mhm.
rising. So we have a lot of
Oh,
overlap too.
oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, I do relate to like also Taurus is so like a like obsessed with the home or like wants to create this beautiful home space, and I think I
Yeah.
do it through also food and interior, like it makes sense for me. I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. When you were talking at the beginning about just like having many projects, human
Mm,
design, I don't know much into it, but I know that there's one type that needs to be having like multiple projects, and that was me. And
mm.
then when you mentioned it, I was like, maybe she's that too, but I don't remember the name of it anyway.
So it could be manifesting generator.
I think it was that.
Um
Yeah.
but I'm a generator, but I do like generators. I think they like to move things forward that they're passionate about, and I do relate to it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. About your client work, I was also wondering. Um, you mentioned this whole lifestyle shift with you. Do you feel like people also in their process of becoming healthier or finding alternatives to healing, do they overcomplicate things? Do you think that there is a power in simplicity and just like doing
Mm.
like small simple things on your everyday life? When people are trying to heal, I feel like they're just seek the most exaggerate crazy thing that you could do that's crazy expensive when it could literally be just like sleep well, eat well, and like
Yeah.
drink water.
I
Move.
mean, I no, 100%. I think that there's almost, or what I first thought when you were mentioning this was that I do think a lot of people think it's overwhelming, or like they think they have to do so much, right, to be
Yeah.
healthy, and then some people might like put it off because it's almost like a procrastination or like an overwhelm. And I do think like a big thing I work with, or and I focus on myself, maybe even too much, is sleep health and sleep quality.
Mm.
Because for me, like, I mean, our body is doing so much every night when we sleep. But I've also studied it a bit and gotten a bit into like, what is actually occurring and how much it can improve your quality of life if you're sleeping well. And so I think it is so true. And usually when I work with clients, I try to make everything so simple. And that's why I try to do such a like, I guess, like lengthy, extensive intake, because I really want to know like what their life is, and then just make some quick, simple like shifts
Yeah.
that are gonna make, you know, an impact right away. Because honestly, that's like, I think the a lot of people want to be like healthier, but they feel like it's like, yeah, too overwhelming. And so I think, no, it's so important to kind of focus on the small things, just like getting a good night's sleep, and like maybe being off your screen before bed, because then your melatonin production is supported and it's not gonna like not come up, so you don't get tired. Or like also timing meals, what time of day you're eating and how that impacts, you know, sleep and digestion. And yeah, I mean, but I think what you were kind of alluding to also is exactly it. Like, there's so many simple things we can do that also make such a big impact.
Yeah. Then there's people that obviously need very in-depth care, like clinical situations, right? And it's not as simple as like sleep well. But for the general population, we're just like, I see, I'm not gonna talk about anyone specific, but like I have so many people in my life that are just like always complaining about like their health, and they just don't eat like they eat one meal a day, they sleep like 4 hours, and they just like running around, and then just like mad all day. And I'm just like, I think I have solutions for you.
Yeah.
Listen.
It is so true. And like everyone is so individual and unique. So like 100%, it's like you really need to meet someone where they're at, and then
Yeah.
kind of like adjust. Yeah, because as you said, it's like, okay, just try to get a good sleep. It's not going to work for
Yeah.
everyone or even be helpful, you know? So yeah.
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 Do you see, like, is there a pattern in that sense? Like, what is the one cause or like common cause that people reach out to you? Is there like a common one, or is it just like vastly different? Are people all looking to like be like, oh shit, I've had digestive issues, and that's like the initiative to like reach out to you? Or yeah.
I think I think that's definitely like a through line. Like definitely with digestion, it's a big one. It also, I feel like, is such a big topic right now. Like I feel like a lot of people are struggling, just I think due to the state of like agriculture, but also being all this like when you're stressed and your cortisol is high and you have a lot going on, your digestive system isn't going to work well too. So then you'll experience. So I think it's kind of like a mix of like the food system and then also the really high stress environment a lot of people are functioning under. And I think it's kind of like at this intersection, a lot of people are looking for help or looking for support, because we've also, I feel like a lot of people, and like myself included, we kind of get on autopilot. And so you're just living your life, and like you could still think you're relatively healthy or be doing a lot of healthy things, but then you're not maybe like addressing the stress or kind of noticing like how it is also impacting your digestion. But I do think digestion is the biggest thing for me. And then it's kind of like when you kind of unpack it a little bit, you realize, okay, there's things not related to food that we can do that can support that.
Yeah.
How do you see the agriculture being such a big impact in terms of digestive issues today?
So, I mean, I'm definitely not a expert, and I haven't studied like agricultural science. I at one point really wanted to get into it though. I was
Yeah,
quite
me too.
passionate about like how food was grown.
Yeah.
But okay, so being from Canada and spending time in the US and also being super exposed to the way the agricultural system is in the US, and knowing about the chemicals that are sprayed on crops, and also the way the system is set up so that they're growing crops for animals, not for people, and they're spraying those crops, and the animals are being fed food they're not naturally designed to eat. I feel like it's just kind of like this whole like
Nation.
mess of a system. Yeah. But like I think the biggest thing is like I guess it was like in world maybe in the Vietnam War. I'm really bad with the decades, but there was a I guess like poison that was sprayed on crops to kill crops, so that from airplanes, they could see where to target. And after the war, the chemical, they had excess of it, and they realized they can spray it on crops in the US to kill the weeds. But this chemical, it's not for human consumption, and it like has run, or like it's called Roundup, but there's so much kind of like runoff into like waterways, and like there's, I don't know if you guys know the documentary Farmer's Footprint,
Yeah.
but it's also a group, and I think they have a few documentaries. But I remember like in the time that I was studying nutrition, there was a lot of information coming out about the sprays in the agricultural system, and how it's cancer causing, and how it messes with the bacteria in our system, so people have a harder time digesting food. So I think like this is a big thing. And then I do know like a lot of land mass is allocated to growing crops for like sheep, like for livestock, and then they're not eating the crops they're supposed to be eating, and so then they're how do you call it, off-gassing, or like putting methane into the environment, because like cows' digestive systems aren't supposed to eat whatever they're being fed, and then they're putting off methane, and methane is huge for environmental impact. And just like it's a big mess, and I know it's a lot worse.
Cycle.
And I
Yeah.
think I'm not the best person to explain it, but it's definitely something I'm very passionate about, and like I think it's a lot worse in North America than it is in Europe, which is
Yeah.
also kind of one of the reasons that I found it to be more attractive to live in Europe, because I was like, honestly, like it's not such a mess over here. There's more regulations. The sprays aren't allowed on the crops, and so people are or they're not struggling as much with finding food that isn't sprayed with chemicals, that's just
Yeah.
grown the way it's been grown for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And it also impacts the soil, so there's less nutrients in the soil, so the vegetables don't have as much nutrients when you eat them. So there's just like so many factors at play here.
Yeah, fully. Yeah, here in Peru, it's a bit like the US, which kind of sucks
Yeah.
because we're such a rich country in terms of what the land provides, which is something that you might recognize because you've lived in Mexico. So like
Yeah.
in that sense, we're very similar. And
Mhm.
so I remember like this year I was doing a photo shoot in a like how do you call it? It was hacienda. I forgot the word.
Yeah.
Like isn't it like a
Yeah, you both know.
estate? Yeah.
And so basically there was a time where I was at a horse, and we were just like going around like the agricultural crops, and I talked to the man that was like riding the horse with me, and I asked him, like, oh, what are you growing here? And he was like, oh, blueberries. And I was like, oh, and I saw that all the crops were like perfectly like cut down, and I was like, oh, and by the way, like, what is the like type of agriculture that you do here? And he was like, we obviously use pesticides. There's no other way of doing agriculture. And I was just like, that's the mindset and the education that
Yeah.
people here, that's the only thing. And lately, because I've been starting this whole like healthy food and cooking business, I've been having like the number of providers of like organic food and fruits and vegetables and etc., and it's literally 3 times the price. So it's just like, what are you even like? I can't, like it's not profitable. I'm just
I wonder if because a lot of like conventional agriculture, it's subsidized, so the farmers are basically paid, and so then if they didn't grow crops this way, then they
Yeah.
wouldn't have the guarantee, or they wouldn't have as much
Exactly.
money, and so that's why they probably have to price it so high to make it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, no, it's
so it's the
crazy.
same in Peru. Like I'm, I guess, not surprised. I feel like I think it's also the same in some ways in Europe. I just don't know enough about the system here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like in Denmark, even I've been trying to, because I've been on that, as I like mentioned briefly, on that like
Yeah.
journey of like trying to heal my own like digestive issues for like a lot of years. And that's also one of the reasons why we also reached out to you, because you're a really good, you're a speaker in that community, in a community that's lacking voices
Mhm.
And I like I was at that point in time, I was really appalled again by like how little information there is to like collect around these topics, and especially because like a lot of these things are also like hidden within that like within the region, and so
Yep.
that's just you need to do your own research, and you need to be your own doctor to like kind of like heal yourself.
Yeah. And like, I mean, it's related, but I was also gonna add, it's like we are striving for organic. However, sometimes like the organic farmers can't afford the certification. And so
Mm.
it's kind of,
Yes.
it's like, as you said, you have to do your own research because some of
Yeah,
it is just like maybe finding a farm that's not certified, but supporting them because you know that their practices are good and they're not spraying or they're not,
Exactly.
and so I feel like it's like it's hard work
yeah,
to like to and a lot of research, but you also want to be able to like support everyone who's doing it well, because like that's the most important, because the more people who are supporting the like non-sprayed, let's just say, agriculture, or chemical like chemical-less, like agriculture without chemicals,
yeah,
the better. But it's so hard to know where to start, and so I feel like that's the nicest thing about having other people who also know about it in different places, and you can
for
kind of
sure.
connect and, yeah,
For sure.
learn. Yeah.
How do you balance guiding clients in that sense and letting them discover things on their own rhythms and to their own truths, and then also being a pillar and like a guide in that sense?
It cut out a little bit, but I think I heard most of it. So I will jump in. But
Okay.
in guiding clients, I think a big thing is like learning about what their knowledge is and what they're interested in achieving first, before kind of like preaching everything I do and saying this is what you must do, because like
Yes, fully.
I only know what my body likes. Like everyone's so unique. But I think that, yeah, a big thing is kind of just like providing simple kind of guidelines or frameworks to follow, but also educating a bit. Like I like to suggest kind of like alternatives that maybe like someone wouldn't think they are ready to include or didn't even know that they should be including or swapping, and kind of like lightly suggesting it and providing a little bit of like the science behind why. Because I think a
Mhm.
big thing is like if you're not explained um why something is the way it is, like maybe why we don't want to have seed oils because they're higher in omega-6 and our bodies have an imbalance and we need less omega-6, la la. It's like if you don't give the why behind it, then why is someone going to do it? And so I think that's kind of like part of it. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I heard the whole question or if I answered what you were asking.
Yeah, yeah, you did. You did.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
We're also super interested in hearing about like food and clients and everything. So you have two big in-person projects basically that are related to food, right? One is like these events in Denmark, and the other one is motherhood and postpartum care. Like, please
Yeah.
tell everything about it.
Okay. So I think the first bit of just like food for events is something that I've done like by myself and with friends, and I think it's almost like fun because it's like I'm cooking already, and I think it's kind of like a creative thing to do, and I love also part of it is like educating. Like I always use all organic or organic equivalent ingredients, and like making it very beautiful and seasonal and showing what we can do with what we can get locally.
Yeah.
So that's fun, and you can do it with friends and also have friends attend or make new friends and just like build community. And then the second one is, as you mentioned, like postpartum nutrition, and this is a newer project that I launched in the spring with a friend when I was in Mexico, and she had a baby about a year ago, and she had actually had the idea to do a postpartum project before becoming a mom, and then it kind of got pushed away. And then I had separately had this idea, and I was going to do in Copenhagen, because in Copenhagen, there's so many young moms. And when I got here 2 years ago, I was like, everyone is pregnant. I'm so
Everyone
confused.
is a
Like, why?
mom,
Yeah.
especially.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, especially in Copenhagen. Like, and I
Yeah.
think I recently heard that the average age group of like people living in
Yeah.
Copenhagen is like 34. So it is in that age as well.
Yeah.
So like it makes sense that they're all like accumulated in
Yeah. Yeah.
Copenhagen. Yeah.
That's
It,
crazy.
because I guess like, and I mean, after living in different places, the support for becoming a new parent is really you're really supported in Denmark and Copenhagen. Like you're basically paid a really long maternity, paternity
Yeah, I
leave,
was gonna
or
say that.
parental
Yeah.
leave. Yeah. And there's a lot of like, I think they even get like incentives. Like I don't know enough. But either way, you're like,
That's
you're
great.
encouraged. Yeah, it's great. You're encouraged to have a baby, and they make it easy for you. And like, I think they even put you in like mom groups with other moms that have babies
Yeah,
around the
yeah,
same
yeah.
time.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we
Yeah.
have like some like
Yeah.
small groups where like in the beginning, like we meet up, they meet up with each other and
Yeah.
then they collaborate on like, or like just like help each other. It's like basically, as
Yeah.
you're saying, it's a support group for like new
Hmm.
mothers.
Yeah, because it's
Wow.
such an intense time too, right? So honestly, I think it's amazing and I like respect it. And but I remember being so surprised. Like I was
Mhm.
walking around my first few weeks in Copenhagen and I was like, there's so many moms, or like pregnant women and moms, but
Yeah.
also everyone looks like they're 25 and they're like
Yeah.
having a baby. And I was like, it's so young, like what?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like also love it. Okay, so either way, I had this idea like maybe like 9 months ago or something. And I was like, how fun would it be to cook healthy food for new moms?
Mhm.
Because, first of all, like, I have so many clients who aren't moms and they're curious what to cook. And then once you know you're going to become a mom, like, not only do you need to nourish yourself, but you also need to
Okay.
nourish your baby and your family and
Yeah.
also balance all the other things that we're
Yeah.
doing as women. And so either way, I kind of thought this was a fun idea. And I remember telling my partner, Philip, and being like, don't you think this is a good idea? Like, I should do it when we get back to Denmark. And I think we're all excited about it. We thought it was like, or he was excited with me.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And then I was chatting with my friend Poppy in Mexico City, and she had her, I think he was 6 months old, maybe at this point. And when I told her, she was like, I was going to do this project 2 years ago, and we are like, okay, we have to do it. So we started it in Mexico City, and then I was always going to come back to Denmark at some point and try to still spend like winters in Mexico. But it was so close to when I was coming back to Denmark. So then we decided, okay, Poppy will do it in Mexico City and I will do it in Copenhagen. And so right now it's actually on pause in Mexico City because becoming a new mom is a lot of work. And she also has a cafe and a lot of other things. But I think when
Oh
I
my
get back
God.
there, we'll
Yeah.
we'll pick it up. But yeah, so now I'm doing it in Copenhagen. And yeah, I think the whole kind of like idea behind it was like I love educating and kind of conveying this idea that like nourishing yourself and cooking healthy, like seasonal, high like antioxidant, like nutritionally dense food, it's not that hard. And I want to be able to do that also by providing meals, or like, making it easier for people, but then for them also to see that I can do this.
Mhm.
Um, but also I'm happy to offer a service for like someone can get it from like day 2 after giving birth to even like 6 months or a year. Like it's supposed to just be like nutritious meals that like they're designed for the new mom. So they're designed to support in like increasing protein, lactation supporting. So we use ingredients that can support milk flow. And
Mhm.
then also like digestible foods, high fiber foods. Like there's so many things that you can focus on postpartum.
Mhm.
However, like also your husband can eat them because these foods aren't bad for like a man, and they're also, your kid could even eat it, or you can eat it when you're not breastfeeding. And so it's kind of designed to be just like super nutritionally dense, tailored
Yeah.
for the new mom, but then also like it's at the end of the day just like really healthy, nutritious, organic food. So yes, that's a little bit about the project and kind of why I wanted to do it.
Super,
And
super,
yeah.
super interesting. Is there one thing that's most important to have and to include in this type of diet for new mothers?
I was gonna ask the same thing.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I couldn't pick one thing, but a few kind of
Yeah.
things that stuck out most is like, I think proper hydration. So like
Mhm.
making sure you're getting minerals, like not only drinking water, but you're
Yeah, yeah.
drinking, it could be like teas, because teas have a lot of minerals found in the herbs. Or you could be adding like a sea salt, or also like foods have minerals. So, but making
Mhm.
sure you're getting enough fluids and like hydration. I feel like that's huge just to keep the system moving, but also to keep yourself energized. And it's also an easy way to nourish yourself, right? Like if you're getting those minerals and hydration, and it just makes the body work and keeps things flowing too. So, I mean, that's a big thing. And I
Yeah.
think that that also applies for a lot of people. Like, I think a lot of us are a bit dehydrated without knowing it. But then I think also like high protein, because your body is rebuilding after giving birth. And so just making sure you're getting enough protein. And then I would say also fiber, like to keep things going and making sure your system is working properly. And also
Mhm.
like, plant foods have so much fiber. So I feel like alongside the fiber, you're going to get antioxidants and
Yeah.
more minerals and nutrients. So I would say like, yeah, protein, hydration, and fiber is probably like the key ones I would want to include. But and it's easy to do it once you kind of get a system around it.
I also was wondering, because you are obviously interested in lifestyle, and like living a healthy lifestyle. When we were doing the whole like questions for and what we wanted to talk about in this podcast episode, I saw on your website that you had a part in your website that was about non-toxic lifestyle and brands. This is part of your philosophy, and it's not only
Mhm.
about like the people but also the earth. And how does your story what is your story with this?
Okay. I think it's a lot of it is connected, and also it's connected to the agricultural piece. So okay, I'll backtrack a little bit though. So when I was super young, I always wanted to be a fashion designer, and I would make
Oh.
clothes. Yeah. I would make clothes when I was like in high school, and I would like print out like pictures from the runways, and like Marc Jacobs is my favorite. I remember when I was like
Yeah.
14 or something, and like I was really into kind of like the fashion. And then it kind of like, I think I was always interested, but then at some point when I went to university, I studied communications, and I minored in fashion, but then I got into food. So then kind of like food and nutrition took over. But then when I was studying nutrition, we also had some courses on like the environment and how um the way food is grown and the way we live also is so linked to the environment. And I think these were actually my favorite classes. And I think it linked a little bit with like being interested in fashion, but then realizing like, no, I want to do it right. Like, I don't want to be contributing to the like fast fashion, what do you call it? Fast fashion
Culture.
world. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I want to be like super conscious, because I'm making all these conscious choices with what I'm putting in my body, but I
Mhm.
also want to do it with what I put on my body.
Mhm.
And so I think it kind of just became another interest of, or like related interest. And it is interesting that, like the clothes, or like most of the clothes that we wear, is also grown in soil,
Mhm.
the same way food is. And so I have always just been interested in like where the ingredients I eat come from, and then where the ingredients or uh, plants or like crops like I wear come from. And so
Mhm.
I think it was just like a big thing of me of like getting curious on the origin of kind of like everything in a way. And then also an interesting thing that they've done studies on is like the frequency of fabrics. And
Yeah, I
so
saw that.
yeah, like some fabrics, organic cotton has a higher frequency than non-organic cotton. And it's better for the earth, and it doesn't use as much water when it's grown. And like there's, I mean, so many other differences. But also, so they're saying the frequency is, I can't tell you the numbers because they're escaping me right now. Like I don't know if it's 1,000 or like 100. Like I don't know what they're
Yeah.
used to rate
Mhm.
them. But I know linen, I think, is one of the best. It's like
Yeah.
1,000.
Yeah.
As I tell you, I can't tell you the
Oh,
numbers.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And also wool is really good. And like, so fabrics like polyester or chemically derived fabrics, and like those ones are like zero or like negative. And it is interesting. I find like when I wear clothes, first of all, I don't buy like fast fashion, but like I always check the ingredient, or not the ingredient, the
Yeah.
equivalent to the
The ingredient
ingredient,
list. Yeah.
the on the clothes I buy,
Yeah.
material label, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I do feel better in natural fabrics. You don't
Mhm.
feel like, I feel like if you ever try like a plastic based fabric,
Wait,
like it feels constricting and you don't
yeah.
feel
You can
vibrationally as
breathe
good.
as better,
Yeah,
as good. Yeah,
exactly.
100%.
yeah. No, I
100%.
Yeah.
It's like you're trapped in a little like plastic bag, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I feel like this is like, yeah, somehow I got into it, and now it's like I feel like it's kind of fun to have a little framework where I try to, include only
Mhm,
naturally derived,
mhm.
ethically sourced
Yeah,
food, objects, clothes. Yeah.
yeah.
That's great.
How did as a kid and your environment as a kid, did that have an impact on you in regards to this like scope of seasonal eating and organic food and stuff like that? Like I know you said that it was influenced heavily by American culture, but like yeah,
Hmm.
how is that? How is your upbringing in that sense?
So I like my mom and like my parents, but mostly my mom, like she cooked mostly like whole foods. Like we didn't have so much processed foods. We would get like sweet cereals like Lucky Charms once a year for our birthday. Like it was wrapped up in a in a
Oh my
but my mom, yeah. And then
I
my
love
sister's
that.
birthday is 11 days before me, so I would get a bowl of hers and then she would get a bowl of mine, and like it was just like such a thing. Like so obviously we loved like processed foods, and
yeah.
when I got into
Yeah,
high school and like
kids.
was going to friends'
Yeah.
houses, like
All
I would
good.
definitely eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But my mom was more like she did cook from scratch a lot, quite a bit. And so I think like it was nice to have that exposure, but she was definitely never like a granola like health food store mom
Yeah,
in any
almond mom.
way. But yeah, almond mom. She wasn't an almond mom. But we also grew up living overseas a bit. So like I grew up in India for 3 years when I was
Mhm,
quite young, and then in Turkey for like 3 4 years in high school. And I
mhm,
think also being exposed to like these other cultures that are quite different from Canada, you try different foods, and in both countries, like you do almost like it's less processed foods in a way, it's more real foods, and so I think it that maybe made me open or curious to not only eating boxed dinners or like whatever it was. I think like that did have an impact, and like yeah, it just made me also I think curious and open and um
yeah, to all those
yeah,
kinds of
more
like
adventurous
different
maybe. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, all these other kitchens and stuff like that.
exactly. Yeah.
And how big of a role does seasonal based produce how big of a role and impact does it have on us?
Does it have on us or on people in general or
Yeah, on people in
yeah, okay.
general. Yeah.
So my I feel like this is tricky because like we live in such a globalized world. So I when I'm living in Denmark in January, I would love to eat a papaya because it's really good for the digestive system and it tastes amazing.
Yeah.
And you can get them from Spain, so it's still in the EU. Maybe they don't grow in
In general.
January though, like but also don't grow in Denmark ever.
Yeah.
I no, never in Denmark.
No. No.
So I do think, and I feel like strongly like it like our bodies are like we're born in a specific country and place, and like we all have specific ancestors, and that
Mhm.
definitely impacts our DNA, and so also what we're gonna do better eating, like it impacts our lifestyle and our digestive system, like in everything, right? So I
Yeah.
think that like me being born from Canada, and I have like Nordic ancestry on both sides, more like Northern Europe kind of thing, or I think like my body's probably more used to eating the type of foods that grow in those climates, and
Mhm.
therefore like it can align with my kind of digestive constitution,
Mhm.
um and
Yeah, it's
therefore
not
like I
yeah, it's not compared to like an equatorial being, then
mhm,
it's quite similar to like someone who lives in yeah.
yeah,
Compared to
exactly,
your diet,
yeah.
our diet is much more like consisting
Yeah.
of like flesh and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's okay. So I think that's kind of like one thing that like I want to acknowledge, because I do feel like, it's like based on where you're kind of like born or you come from, like you're probably going to do
All
better,
like
and you're designed to eat the foods that are local to there in season, right? And I think it's important to I think, I mean, of course it's important to like eat what your body is gonna feel good with, but I do think that like I also can tell how my body feels when I eat a papaya. We're just using papaya, or like, I mean, you can get, I was going to say a fig, but you can get figs in Denmark.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and so, but I think part of it is just like, I think almost maybe the most important thing is like being conscious of like, where does the food come from? So if
Yeah.
I'm not eating like something that's local and in season, like, do I need to eat it? Where did it come from? You know, am I going to eat it every day? I mean, it's also like that applies for coffee. Like coffee grows nowhere near where we like where I live and where so many people live, and everyone consumes it every day. So
Yeah,
I
it
think
grows here.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah. So only you should be drinking now.
Yeah.
But yeah, and matcha is only in Japan,
Yeah,
and like it's this
also,
whole
yeah.
thing. Yeah. Mhm.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's like, I think a big thing is just like educating yourself, you know,
Mhm.
on like where things come from. And a big thing that actually I'm really excited about right now in Denmark is, and a lot of places have this, is getting like I call it a CSA box, like community supported agriculture. But in Denmark, I don't think they call it that, but I get a box from a farm once a week.
Mhm.
And I go and pick it up at a specific location, and
Yeah.
it just consists of whatever the farm had that week.
I love
Yeah, and then
Glutton
I also get eggs.
is
Yeah,
there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
you know
And
that,
so, and
sorry,
huh?
Sorry.
I feel like that's so interesting because talking about just seasonality in general and talking about this, I feel like this globalized world and the fact of we being able to have whatever we want whenever we want it, it's so ego related in general. So
Yeah.
like we want to always be able to eat the same foods, throughout the year. So like that means we need to be able to produce and buy the same types of
Hmm.
so whether it's vegetables, because if you always have different ones, it's like you need to be thinking what am I gonna cook. And then also if you think it from a business standpoint, whether it's a restaurant, a cafe, etc., you also would need to be changing your menu all the time, and
Yeah,
people love rituals in that sense, in routine, in like
yeah,
the more repeated a meal you have, the more it's like comforting for you and the more you just would pay for it as well. So
yeah,
I think this whole seasonality thing is like letting go of our egos and being able to just like tune into like what nature can provide. But that's hard, right, for
yeah.
us.
I love that explanation because I feel like I've never used our ego as explaining why we resist living in tune with seasons, because it's someone else telling us how to live, or it's the earth
Literally.
telling us how to live, right? And it's so
Yeah.
challenging for people to accept that and flow with it. But yeah, I think that that's a thing I recommend. I actually have too much food, and we don't even pay very much money for the vegetable box, and it's just like so fun because then you get creative, and
Yeah.
you also know I know I have enough food, but now I have to figure out what I'm going to make with it, and it can be
Yeah. Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
Like we had
It's
potatoes, so I just
um,
boiled potatoes and put some herbs on it. Like it doesn't have to be crazy. Yeah.
no,
I
no.
love that.
How big would you, in your experience, and just per your own experience, how do you think, what do you think about like the rotational diet in all of this? Like, is it important to rotate what you
Uh-huh.
eat, or doesn't it have any importance, and can you just eat eggs every day? Or
I think that rotational, or like having a diverse diet is like so important. That's like one of the biggest things I would want to like not preach, but like what I would want to like stress for importance. And I think it applies to like not only food, but like in so many aspects. I think it's so important to have like diversity,
Mhm.
because it can um I mean, I've heard this applied to even like nature, like exposing yourself to different climate, or like the microbiome of different places. And
Yeah.
so I think, okay, going back to food though, I think diversity is really important because every plant, let's
Mm.
use, or like, I mean, also like protein and like animal products, but they all have a different profile of nutrients. And so if you think about it, like the more nutrients something has, and it's like good nutrients when it's from like a healthy plant, it's gonna colonize your gut with more like microbes, and so then you're gonna have more variety, and it's gonna like bolster immune health. It's gonna make you more resilient because you have more um how do you describe it? A more prolific gut
Yeah. Yeah.
flora.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, if anything, like it could only have a positive impact. However, if you do have like other underlying digestive issues, like it can be challenging, and you might get some discomfort as you kind of colonize or like start to reintroduce foods. But I think it's just like such a good way to kind of like support your immune system and also become more resilient to foods get all the nutrients, because like there's so many also different nutrients. So if you're only eating one food every day or only eggs, like your body also will like not know how to digest or break down other foods, and so you're just kind of like sabotaging yourself by not
Expanding your own like profile of like foods that you
exactly.
can tolerate. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
I
I
love that.
heard on a podcast recently someone said, I think they were like, you have to have 37 different foods or plants a week, if not more. But it was like nice to have
Yeah.
this kind of like goal of, okay, maybe it's 50, try to get 50. But like that can be like chia seed is one, flaxseed is two, like I don't think it's that hard. Coffee is one. Yeah. Matcha. Yeah.
I heard this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but
great.
I think that's important, and it can be fun. You could even probably like choose a number, maybe like make sure it's over a certain number, but then like set a little goal, and it can be a fun kind of like challenge. Yeah. Do it with
Yeah,
your kids too.
37.
That would
I'm
be
gonna
fun.
try. I'm gonna
Yeah.
try. That's great.
Perfect. Yeah.
We want to do some rapid five questions, which are like, like faster questions that you can just answer from the top of your head to close it down, and then we will have like an actual closing question. So the
Perfect.
first one is, what's one small ordinary habit you do each day that feels extraordinary in its effect?
Sleep. Getting enough sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
And returning to like the food and the recipe and like changing,
Yeah.
maybe also changing that up, but like
Yeah.
what is a dish or a recipe that is like your current go-to, or like that's in season
Okay.
right now that you really utilize?
Okay, this one is something that I've been doing for like maybe 10 or 15 years. But it's something that I feel like I'm into right now, because it's a salad dressing I put on kale. And so it's like a kale salad, and it's something I brought to like dinner parties, and I
Oh my
make it
God,
home, and
so
I'm still
good.
excited to eat it every time. But
Mhm.
I do it with like any type of like green kale, like the dino kale. There's so many different terms.
Yeah.
And then the salad dressing is with apple cider vinegar, tahini, nutritional yeast, olive oil, sea salt. I think that's all. I mean, I'm not giving you the ratios, but you have to play around and decide how
Yeah.
thick you want it. But honestly, I feel like every time it's just like so delicious, and it feels like a meal in itself. You could just have the kale and the dressing. It's nice to add some protein, but if you
Home
can't,
brunch.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
What is something that's currently keeping you curious?
Oh, that's so hard. um, I think maybe like learning more about agriculture and like farms. Like I think that's something that I wish I had more knowledge in. So I'm curious to also, I would love one day, like right now I live in an apartment in the city. Like I would love to do a permaculture course and get kind of
Oh,
more curious about
I love that. Yeah.
growing food. Yeah, myself. Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that.
Amazing.
Actually, in the 1st and 2nd of November, I'm gonna go to like a little retreat that's about like learning fermented foods,
Yeah.
like techniques, like a bunch of different ones, and it's gonna be at a permaculture house in which like people
Wow.
stay, and they actually do permaculture courses there
Versus.
from people coming like from Europe and Asia and stuff like that. I'm so excited, honestly. Like,
Wow. I want to see and hear about it online because it sounds
yeah,
so good.
we'll
Yeah.
do. We'll do when
Yeah.
that happens.
Just post it.
Perfect.
Yeah. And what do you love the most about now being and living in Denmark?
Oh, honestly, the seasons. Because
Yeah.
I'm so, like, I love to, this is not a rapid fire answer, but I'll try to make it quick. But
No,
I've
no.
been so used to like going to Mexico and looking for sun. And it's obviously, I'm such a sun person. Like, one of the reasons I love Canada is because I hate the winter. But I think right now I'm trying to embrace the seasons in Denmark. And now it's getting a little bit cozier and like fall, and there's like a different scent in the air. And I'm trying to embrace it and be excited and, create routines and rituals and get excited with the food. And so, yeah, that's what I'm embracing about being in Denmark.
I love
Amazing.
that. where do you currently draw your inspiration from? Whether it's nature, people, happenings, events, what's feeding you at the moment?
I think a big thing is from travel, because you're just exposed to newness when you travel. Even if you're going to a place you've been, it's like new from your everyday. And I think that's why I'm so addicted to it and I keep doing it. And but it's also it can be a positive thing.
Yeah.
And I think like also as an extension of that, like nature, like it's nice when you travel to be in nature, and like the natural world I think is like endlessly the most fascinating, right, thing to witness and explore, and never ending
Yeah.
inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah. One of those things that really can like get us back to like our intuitions and to
Mm,
actually like listening and not only keep on going in that hamster wheel of high cortisol
exactly.
addiction.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And as like a final closing, what's one thing that our listeners can implement today to reconnect and slow down and live more authentically?
I think this I think a big thing for me is like, and I need to do this more myself, is like taking time and space if you can before you start the day, before going on technology, before even interacting with other people, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends what your living situation is. But I think just like taking more time for like, yeah, a meditation or a breath work or journaling, or like just like solo time with like no external kind of like technology or feedback. I feel like it's super important to also like tune into how you want to set up your day or your week. And it's something I'm needing to remind myself to do these days all the time. So
Yeah.
a good tip from me
Yeah.
to everyone, for us
Yeah.
all to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Bringing that intuition, like that, like setting an intention for like the day or like the week. I feel like for me, as it's rapidly like, or it's drastically changed like my, also just like my state of mind during the day.
Yeah, no, 100%. And when
Yeah.
I've been good on my kind of like meditation streaks, it's like when like I've had the most kind of exciting opportunities and
100%.
travel or whatever come up. So
Yeah.
it's 100% related. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the universe senses you, and
Hmm.
it's very real. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
100%.
Amazing. It was such a lovely chat, honestly, just getting to know you more and everything that surrounds your world. It's so fascinating. So thank you so much for your time and your openness to share.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me and giving the opportunity. It was so fun. And
Of
yeah,
course.
also excited to learn more about you guys also when I'm not being interviewed.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Have a
See
beautiful
you,
rest
see
of
you.
your days.
You
Bye.
You too.
too.
Bye.
Bye.